Since the beginning of time, humanity has searched for answers. Who am I? Why am I here? And what power lives deep within my being? In this text, Emmet Fox, saw one of the greatest messengers of spiritual truth in the 20th century, offers us a transformative revelation. You are not separate, you never were. The one, that divine, eternal, invisible principle, does not dwell far away in the heavens. It lives within you. It is what you are. When you say, I am, you are not speaking ordinary words. You are activating the spark of the all, the power that creates universes, that heals, that frees, that manifests. This is not a text to merely listen to. It is a code for awakening, an alchemy of words that dissolves the illusion of separation and reveals the eternal truth. You and the all are one. Prepare to leave behind the shadow of doubt, the prison of fear, and claim what has always been yours. Your oneness with the infinite, your power to co-create reality, your divine identity, because the secret is not out there nor hidden. The secret is you. Let us begin. We live in a divided world, divided by races, creeds, doctrines, classes, opinions, divided by external borders and also by internal walls. Man has separated from man, religion from life, the mind from the soul, and above all, man has separated from God. Or at least, that is what he has believed. And yet, that separation never really happened, because deep within the being, beyond fluctuating thoughts, beyond personality, beyond the noise of the world, there is only one. One power, one life, one consciousness operating in everything that is. Spiritual ignorance has constructed a fragmented universe, but the awakening of the soul reveals a simple, eternal, unchangeable fact. There is only God, and you are in him as a living expression of his being. It is not about belief. It is about a universal law, the highest law, the one that holds all others, the law of the One. And when this law is understood not only with the mind but with the heart, everything changes. Fear dissolves, judgment stops, the struggle ceases, because the soul that has remembered its origin no longer needs to defend itself, prove itself, compete, or seek what it has never lost. It has returned to the One. But how to live this unity? In a world full of conflict and apparent duality, how to experience wholeness? Here enters the highest power that human beings possess, the recognition of I am. I am is not a magic formula, not a phrase to repeat without meaning. I am is the closed name revealed to Moses, confirmed by Jesus, and sleeping in the heart of every human being who has forgotten who they are. When you say I am with spiritual understanding, you are recognizing the One in you. You are affirming that you are not separate, that you are not an abandoned fragment, that you are not an accident. You are saying without words, I am part of the whole. I am the individual manifestation of the one life. I am in God and God is in me. And that recognition, when it is not just theoretical but lived, becomes the doorway back. The doorway back to the kingdom, the doorway back to peace, the doorway back home. This book is not to convince you of something new. It is to remind you of the eternal. The law of the One was not invented by philosophers nor discovered by prophets. It is, and it always has been. What we will do, page by page, is tear away the veil, dismantle the illusion of separation, knock down the altars of fear, and restore in you the perfect image of God that you always were. Each chapter is a key, each teaching a flame, each word a bridge. We will not study theories, but we will enter into the living experience of humility. And when we do, I am will no longer be knowledge. It will be your breath. Then you will see God in you, and then you will see him in everything, and then you will understand that there is no other, only the One expressing itself as multiplicity. And then, with the eyes of the soul open, you will be able to say, without fear, without pride, without effort, I am, because God is, and because there is nothing outside of him. The Secret of the One, I Am All, by Emmet Fox. We have noticed that more than 80% of those who visit our channel are not subscribed. You can support this project by clicking the subscribe button and liking the video. Thank you for inspiring us to continue creating more and better content for you. Are you ready to transform your life? Chapter 1, There is only one, God as universal presence. The first great lie that has rooted human suffering is not fear, nor sin, nor even death. It is the illusion of separation, the ingrained, inherited, reinforced belief that there is more than one power operating in the universe. That belief is the origin of error, the source of discord, the root of evil. But when the soul awakens and looks from the spirit, It understands the greatest, simplest, most liberating truth. There is only one, just one mind, one presence, one life, one source, and that one is not far away, it is not up there, it is not in the future. It is here, now, in everything, as everything. Everything you see, everything you are, everything that exists is contained in that one. There is no part of your being that is outside of God. There is no leaf that falls without its substance. There is no righteous thought that was not born in his mind. There is no breath that does not come from his breath. There is nothing outside of the one. This truth, which may seem abstract to the logical mind, is the foundation of all spiritual revelation. All great teachings, from Moses to Jesus, from the prophets to the mystics, have revolved around this one discovery. God is all, and outside of him there is nothing. Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is. I am the first, I am the last, and outside of me there is no God. In him we live, move, and have our being. The kingdom of God is within you. These phrases are not poetry. They are declarations of law. They are reminders. They are keys. And whoever lives them no longer fears, no longer hates, no longer defends, no longer runs from side to side seeking power, because they have found the one source and live from it. Now, if this truth is so clear, why do so many live as if there are 2 or 10 or 1,000 powers? Because they have forgotten. Because the world, with its noise, its history, and its fear, has sown the illusion of duality. And that illusion is the true cause of all human struggles. It is believed, for example, that God exists, but also evil exists, that health exists, but also sickness, abundance exists, but also scarcity, light exists and its opposite, and from this fragmented vision, the soul becomes divided and begins to fight, to ask, to fear, and in that state, it forgets its origin. It forgets that it is not a separate creature seeking the favor of a distant power, but a living expression of the one, manifesting its nature. Beloved reader, God is not out there. God is here. God is not in the future. He is always. He is not in the great and absent from the small. He is in everything, as everything. This teaching does not seek to abolish individuality. You are a unique expression, an irreplaceable channel. But form does not alter substance. The branch is not the tree, but it lives by it. So you are not the whole, but you are of it, in it, through it. There is no separation, only degrees of consciousness. And when you ascend in consciousness, you do not become something else. You simply awaken to what you already were. Look around you. What do you see? Stones, trees, faces, roads. And yet if you had spiritual eyes, and you do, if you open them, you would see that all of that is one. God is not in the stone. God is the substance of the stone. He is not in the body. He is the life of the body. He is not in the flower. He is the intelligence that organizes it. He is not in space. He is space itself and everything that fills it. That is why Jesus did not say he was going to God. He said, "The Father and I are one." It was not a metaphor. It was a declaration of lived unity, and that same recognition is possible for you. This is how one begins to live, first by letting go of the belief in the other. There is no other power, no other origin, no other source. Duality is illusion, division is a lie, separation is only ignorance. Second, affirming with all your soul, "I live in the one, I'm from the one, I'm one with God," and then holding that affirmation in your day-to-day life, not as a ritual but as a gaze, not as an escape but as a practice. When you see pain, do not deny it, but declare in your heart, "This is not the will of the one, and therefore it has no eternal reality." When you see injustice, do not resign yourself, but remember, humility is at work. I bless and affirm the restoration of good. This is not positive thinking, it is spiritual living. It is dwelling in truth above appearances. And appearances change. Truth remains. The consciousness of unity gives you power, not power over others, but power to create in harmony, power to hold faith in the storm, power to bless when before you cursed, power to be an instrument of good, because you know there is no other power. Prayer changes when you live in the one. You no longer say, "My God, help me." Instead you say, "Thank you because you are already in me as the solution I cannot yet see, but I know it is." You no longer beg, you recognize. You no longer ask for something to come from above. You declare that it already is. And from that state life changes, because the outer world, as I have said many times, is a reflection of the inner world. When your mind is unified, your surroundings will also be unified. When your words are in harmony with unity, your steps will also be. Do not worry about convincing others. Live in the one, and your life will be testimony. It will be a mirror. It will be a silent call. Because nothing attracts more than a soul at peace with its origin. And if you fall and if you forget, return to the center, return to the name, return to the one. It is never too late to remember that you were never separated. And when you remember, not with the mind but with your whole being, then you will look at your neighbor, at the sky, at yourself, and you will know with certainty, without words, God is this, and this is God. And outside of this, there is nothing. Chapter 2. I am sacred name and creative power. The entire universe is upheld by a single affirmation, I am. Before a letter was written, before a religion was founded, before men were divided into races and nations, I am already was. It is the unchanging name, the essence that neither births nor dies, the original vibration from which everything that exists was called into being. When Moses, in his confusion and fear, asks the Spirit, "Who are you? What name should I tell the children of Israel?" the response was not a title, not a form, not a dogma. It was a revelation. I am that I am. This you shall say, I am has sent me to you. That name, I am, is not the property of a tribal god. It is the key to being. It is the fire that burns but does not consume. It is the sign that God is not an external being, but the supreme identity that dwells in all that breathes. And from that moment, humanity has direct access to its origin, not by merit, not by sacrifice, but by recognition. To say I am is to activate the very center of creative power, because it is not a phrase. It is a decree. It is the living word, the sacred formula that, when understood, transforms the common man into an instrument of the Spirit. When Jesus said, I am the light of the world, I am the way, I am the door, I am the life, he was not speaking from his humanity. He was manifesting the divinity latent in the awakened man. He was not speaking as an exceptional person, but as a soul that had remembered who it was. And that same possibility is available to you because you too can say, I am the light where there was darkness. I am the way to my own soul. I am the door through which good enters this world. The I am does not belong to a few. It is the inheritance of all. But it is also a responsibility. For every time you say I am, you are activating the name, and what you follow it with becomes your reality. If you say I am weak, I am poor, I am unworthy, you are using God's name to chain yourself. And that is not humility, it is spiritual blasphemy, because you are declaring as true something that does not have its origin in the truth. But if you say, I am peace, I am guided, I am one with the Spirit, you are using the name to restore the kingdom within you. And then the Creator begins to manifest as your world. Life is not governed by loose beliefs, it is governed by sustained decrees, and the most powerful of them all is the one that carries the name. That is why I tell you, take care of what follows your I am, because that will be the seed. And that seed will grow, because the entire universe responds to the name, and the name is I am. Now what does it mean to partake of that name? It means that you are not separate from the Creator. You are not a servant. You are not a lost sheep. You are not an ego. You are the channel through which life expresses itself. You are part of the Word, and therefore you can create, not create from the ego, from ambition or struggle, but create from the consciousness of the One, from peace, from purpose, from faith that needs no proof because it rests in the eternal. You were made in the image and likeness of God, and that does not mean form, it means essence. It means that the substance of God is in you as you. The I am that you whisper daily is not yours, it is a man inhabiting you. That is why when you say, I am love, the universe listens. God is expressing himself as love through this soul, and when you say, I am destruction, the universe listens. This channel has used the name to harm itself. The name does not discriminate. It is pure power, and like all divine forces, it manifests according to the consciousness that carries it. The task of the awakened soul is not to repeat empty affirmations, but to raise its consciousness until the I am it declares is in harmony with the One. And then everything else aligns. That is why Jesus did not say, I have, but I am. He did not say, God gave me, but the Father and I are one. And you can live this way too, but you must begin by looking inside. Be still, release the surface, and enter that formless space where only presence remains, And there, without the need for voice, say, I am, without anything else, without request, without additions, just that. Because when the soul says, I am from the center, all of heaven responds, the I am is the living word. And the word was not said once. It continues to be spoken. And you are the mouth through which God still names himself. Live with reverence, speak with care, affirm with faith. Because every time you say I am, you are painting the world, and that world will be the image you have held within. Today, you can change the way you speak, and by doing so, you will change the way you live. I invite you, not as a teacher, but as a brother, to say with me from the soul, I am what God says I am. I am in him, and he is in me. I am the life, the light, the truth. I am one, and outside of the one, there is no other. Chapter 3, From Separation to Humility, the Great Forgetting and the Great Return. Human suffering does not come from sin, nor from destiny, nor from divine punishment. It comes from a single source, the illusion of separation. That persistent, deeply ingrained, mistaken idea that we are alone, that there is a separation from God, a world apart from the Spirit, a life that occurs outside of the One. This is the great forgetting. It is not a sin, it is not an offense, it is simply an error of perception. A child is not born with this idea. A child is born united. They look with wonder, trust effortlessly, love without judgment. But as they grow, the world begins to teach them that there are others, that there is a God up there and we are down here, that love must be earned, salvation must be earned, that there is separation. And so little by little they begin to forget themselves. They forget that they were made in the image and likeness of God. They forget that God lives within them. They forget that there is no outside or inside when living in the presence. And this forgetting is the origin of pain. Because if you believe that you are separate, everything becomes a struggle. You struggle for love. You struggle for provision. You struggle for approval. You struggle for meaning. And in this struggle, you exhaust yourself. But the most tragic thing is not the effort. The most tragic thing is that you are searching for something you never lost. Like the fish that dies of thirst because it doesn't know it swims in water. Like the child who asks for an inheritance they already possess. The soul lives begging for what is rightfully theirs by eternal spiritual right, and that is the root of all unhappiness. When man believed he was separate from God, religion was born as an attempt to return. But many times, religion, instead of guiding back, reinforced the idea of distance. There was talk of distant heavens, eternal punishments, impossible merits. A far-off, punitive, vigilant God was worshipped, and the soul, instead of returning to the One, drifted further away. But this is changing. We are in a time, I have seen it in my talks, in the faces of men and women hungry for truth, that the soul is remembering. It is beginning to suspect that all this suffering is unnecessary, that this burden is not real, that something deeper vibrates behind it all, and that something is unity. You are not separate, you never were. You are emanated as an expression of the One. And that changes everything, because if you are not separate, then you are not alone. Then you do not need to prove your worth. Then you do not need to fill God, just remove the veil. That veil is nothing more than an idea, a mistaken idea, but an idea that has been repeated so many times that it has become culture, language, custom, identity. And how is it broken? Through recognition, not through effort, not through punishment, not through fear, but through remembrance. The great return is not an achievement, it is a recollection. The soul returns to the One when it recognizes asterisco guionum casale. Asterisco, I was never excluded. Separation was a dream, and now I am waking up. That awakening is not instantaneous for all, but it begins with a single true thought, sustained with faith. God is in me as I am. God is not far. God is here. God is not against. God is for. I am part of Him, not a separated accident. When you think like this, when you pray like this, when you live like this, something changes in you. And that change is not personal improvement, it is a return home. It is what the prodigal son experienced. Not a punishment, but an awakening. Not a judgment, but a feast, because the Father never stopped loving. It was the Son who wandered in thought, and it was thought that brought him back. You can return in this instant. No ritual is needed. Just recognize that you already are. When you do, all your thought system begins to heal. You no longer think in terms of scarcity because you know you are sustained. You no longer judge others because you recognize them as part of the same one. You no longer punish yourself because you understand that love does not punish. And there begins the true life, the life that needs no explanation, the life that flows from within, the life where there are no two, because only in unity can there be peace. Only in unity can there be real power. Only in unity can unconditional love be born. Do not worry if you still forget. Forgetting is part of the journey. What matters is wanting to remember. And every time you affirm, I am one with the One, I am not separate, I am a living expression of the Spirit, you are bringing yourself back. You are returning to the center. You are finally touching reality. And when you touch reality, suffering loses its voice. It no longer shouts, no longer commands, no longer defines, because you have returned. And in that return there is no fear, only God remains, as He has always been, waiting in you. Chapter 4. I am in the teachings of Jesus. Few have understood the true depth of Jesus' message. Many have seen Him as a prophet, others as the founder of a religion, some as a martyr, and others as a miracle worker. But very few have grasped His most sacred secret, the core of His entire gospel, the silent center from which He lived and spoke. That center was not a doctrine, not a morality, not a system of beliefs. It was a consciousness, the consciousness of I am. Jesus did not come to the world to create a cult around His figure. He came to awaken in every man and woman the realization of their unity with God. He did not say, I am the only Son, but I am the vine, you are the branches. He who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. The kingdom of God is within you. These are not expressions of humility or poetry. They are declarations of spiritual law. And at the heart of all these declarations is the sacred name I am. Jesus never said, I have the light, but I am the light of the world. He didn't say, I teach the truth, but I am the truth. He didn't say, I show the way, but I am the way. Why did He speak this way? Why such an insistence in the structure of His message? Because He spoke from the very center of being, from that eternal identity that does not depend on a human name, lineage, or circumstance, from the I am. And He did not do it to exalt Himself, but to show you your true nature. Jesus was the mirror, a perfect mirror, not for you to worship, but for you to recognize yourself. When He said, before Abraham was, I am, He was saying, before all time, before form, before this personality, there is a presence that has always been, and that presence is speaking now through this body. That is what made the Pharisees tremble. Not His miracles, not His parables, but the audacity of declaring, I am. Because that name in His time and culture could only be pronounced by God Himself. But Jesus did it not out of arrogance, but because He knew that this name is in everyone who remembers where they come from. You have it too. You can also say, I am, with consciousness, not to compare, not to impose, but to remember. To remember that you are not a weak character seeking approval. You are the channel through which the One expresses itself as form. That is why Jesus did not establish a religion with rituals, but a consciousness with power. And that consciousness does not die. It does not depend on time. It remains alive, and you can ignite it now every time you say, I am peace, I am truth, I am one with the Father. You are repeating the secret of the Master, and when you do this with faith, with intention, with a pure heart, the same presence that spoke through Jesus begins to speak through you. And then you no longer repeat teachings, you become the teaching. You no longer imitate, you manifest. You no longer fear, you rest in what is. The I am is not a personal name. It is the key to the gospel. It is the point where man stops being a creature and recognizes himself as a son. And the son does not ask for what he already possesses, he only recognizes it. Jesus did not come to give you permission to repeat prayers. He came to give the name, and He gave it with His life, with His words, with His silent resurrection in each one of us. When He said, I am the resurrection and the life, He was not talking about a future event. He was speaking of a state, a vibration, an identity, of you when you remember. The world has darkened the name with dogma, but the name is still alive. It beats in every soul that stops, that silences its mind, that breathes from the heart, and says with certainty, without fear, without doubt, I am what the Father is, for the Father and I are one. And when you say it like that, not as one who repeats, but as one who has seen, one who has felt, one who has returned, then the gospel is fulfilled, not on paper, but in you. And Christ is not in the sky. Christ is alive in your I am. Chapter 5. The mental law and the manifestation of the One. Everything in creation begins in the mind, not in the body, not in action, not in the spoken word, but in sustained thought with intention. The entire universe, from the smallest sprout to the furthest galaxy, is the living projection of an idea sustained in the divine mind. And just as you have been made in the image and likeness of God, you too are a creator thinker. But there is something we must understand with absolute clarity. Not every thought has power. Only the unified thought has true power. Unified. Unified with what, you may wonder? Unified with the truth? With the one, with the I am? The mental law is precise. It is as precise as the law of gravity or the law of the sower. What you think, what you believe, what you hold in your consciousness with faith, emotion, and repetition, that manifests in your world, not by magic, but because the mind is the mold and life is the substance that fills it. But here is the most important point. For thought to create in harmony, it must come from the consciousness of unity. A thought born from separation, from fear, from lack, yes, it can create, but it will not create wholeness. It will create shadows because the mold was broken from the beginning. Now, how does it manifest from unity? First, you must know that you are not creating alone. You are not generating things from your ego, nor are you moving energies apart from God. You are collaborating with the One. You are allowing the divine mind to think through you, and that requires alignment. Unified thought is not simply positive thinking. It is ordered, elevated, clean, and connected thought. It is thinking as one who knows that God is all, and therefore there is nothing to fear, nothing to compete with, and nothing to force. When you think from I am, your ideas do not come from anxious desire but from recognition. You no longer say, I want to attract abundance, but I am the expression of the abundance that already is. You no longer say, I want to be loved, but I am the love of God manifest here and now. And that difference is not small. It is the difference between struggling and allowing, between begging and inheriting, between dreaming and living. Manifestation does not depend on the quantity of your thoughts, but on their charity, their origin, and their faith. A thought from I am, sustained with peace, gratitude, and certainty, is more powerful than 1,000 disordered thoughts. Jesus never asked with anxiety. He only declared, Lazarus, I say to you, rise up. Father, I thank you that you always hear me. I am. And then the manifestation occurred. Because his thought was not desire, it was decree, it was the expression of truth, it was unity between the human mind and the divine mind. And you can do the same, but you must order your mental field. You must watch your ideas, your images, your words, your assumptions. It is not enough to declare, I am, once a day, if you spend the rest of the time thinking from separation. Your mind must become an altar, not a marketplace, and that altar must be clean, lit, and preserved. How do you do this? With daily practice, with constant observation, with deep silence, with affirmations that do not seek to convince you of something false, but to remind you of the eternal. For example, I am the divine intelligence guiding every decision. I am the perfect health manifesting in every cell. I am the pure channel of heavenly provision. I am the peace of the One living in this form. These affirmations are not autosuggestions. They are mental alchemy. They are ways of shaping the invisible substance of life from the closed world of spiritual thought. And the most beautiful thing is that you are not alone in this. When your thought aligns with the One, all the forces of the universe cooperate with you. People appear, opportunities open, ideas arrive, not by effort, but because life loves a soul that thinks from unity. This is the law, and spiritual laws do not fail. They only require understanding and constancy. That is why you must not scatter your thoughts. Do not try to manifest from fear, from haste, from ego. Return to the One, declare from I am, think with the Spirit, and let the form take care of itself. Everything you see, whether good or bad, was first a thought. The universe is mental, and you have the key. Use that key with reverence. Use that key with purpose. And every time you think, decree, or affirm, do it with this awareness. My thought is not alone. It is God in me manifesting His truth through my inner word. And so, thought by thought, your world transforms. not by chance, but because the One has begun to remember itself in you. And when the One remembers, nothing lacks, nothing opposes. Everything is fulfilled. Chapter 6, Love, Forgiveness, and Unity, the triad that saves. All true spiritual power arises from the understanding of one thing: God is one, and that one is love. Not a conditional, limited, human, or fearful love, but unconditional, perfect, impersonal, and eternal love. The love that is not altered by what you do or don't do. The love that cannot be lost because it has never been outside of you. The love that is the very substance of your being. And this love, when lived consciously, saves. It does not save from punishment, but from the illusion of being separate, divided, at war with the world. Love, forgiveness, and unity are not noble values or good intentions. They are laws, they are paths, they are doors, they are the holy triad through which the soul returns to itself, returns to God, and by doing so is reborn. Because if you truly love, if you forgive sincerely, if you recognize humility in all, then there is no shadow that can remain in your consciousness. Everything is healed. Let's begin with love. Love is the visible form of the One. It is the current that unites what seemed to be separated. It is the force that does not need to defend itself because it conquers without imposing. It cannot be contained, forced, or imitated. It can only be remembered and allowed to flow. Spiritual love is not emotion. It is recognition, knowing. You are like me, because in you also dwells the I am. When you love this way, you cannot harm, you cannot divide, you cannot reject, not because you are good, but because you have seen the one in the other. Jesus said, "Love your enemies," not as an impossible command, but as a technique for liberation, because the one who loves their enemy breaks the illusion of duality, and where there is no duality, there is no conflict. Only God remains. Forgiveness is the second pillar. True forgiveness is not saying, "I forgive you," from a pedestal. It is not condescension. It is not weakness. It is awakening. It is seeing the mistake for what it is. A manifestation of forgetfulness is understanding that the offense, the betrayal, the wound does not come from the I am in the other, but from their ignorance of themselves. And so you no longer need to carry the pain because you know it was not personal. It was human, it was a dream, and you have awakened. Forgiveness heals the one who gives it. It cleanses the soul of the one who offers it and restores clear vision. Even in their error, they are like me. Even in their shadow, they carry the spark. Even in their fall, they remain of God. This does not excuse the act, but it redeems the being, and by doing so, it frees the world. And we come to unity. Unity is not a theory, it is the fundamental condition of the universe. There are no two, there is only one, expressing itself as many. When you love, you return to the one. When you forgive, you dissolve the two. When you recognize the other as an extension of yourself, you return to love. The world cries for justice, but the soul is not healed by vengeance, but by vision. And the highest vision is this: there is no separation, only levels of remembrance. A soul that has remembered its unity cannot hate, cannot compete, cannot exclude, because it knows that by harming the other, it harms itself. This is not abstract mysticism. It is the only real spiritual logic, and whoever applies it lives free. To love, forgive, and unite is not easy for the ego, but for the I am, it is natural. Because the I am does not hold offenses, does not compare, does not divide, it only expresses, it only creates, it only radiates. And you, when you choose to love, forgive, and live in unity, you are declaring the universe: I no longer participate in the dream of the other. I live in the one, and from there, everything is new. And what happens when you live from this triad? Your world is reordered, relationships are healed, old wounds dissolve. Chaos is organized, not because the world changes from the outside, but because your vision has redeemed it. Remember, love sees the eternal, forgiveness releases the illusory, and humility restores the truth. Live from this, and you won't have to save anything, because you yourself will have become the salvation. Not as a hero, not as a preacher, but as what you truly are, a child of the One, bearer of the name, reflection of eternal love. Chapter 7. Evil is the belief in two. Every idea of evil is born from a single root, the belief that there is more than one power. As soon as the soul accepts this premise, even unconsciously, the universe begins to fracture in its perception. Opposites arise, enemies appear, conflicts surface, and with them fear. Because where there is two, there is tension. Where there is two, there is struggle. Where there is two, God is no longer whole. Duality is not real. It is a mental state, a misperception that sets in when the soul has forgotten its origin. For from the consciousness of the One, there is no separation between creator and creature, between giver and receiver, between God and his manifestation. Everything is God. Everything is one. Everything is I am. But when the soul falls into the idea of the other, another power, another will, another origin, fear becomes inevitable, and that fear generates judgment. And judgment gives rise to guilt, and guilt projects punishment. Thus the error spreads as a shadow, not because it has substance, but because it has been believed. The mind that believes in two is constantly divided, between faith and doubt, between love and fear, between will and destiny, between heaven and earth. And thus it lives exhausted, because it tries to uphold a world that was not created by God, but by the belief in separation. Jesus said, "A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand." And that includes the inner kingdom. As long as you believe there is a power for good, and another for evil, a power for life and another for death, you will be trapped in the illusion, and in that illusion, suffering is inevitable. The solution then is not to fight against evil. It is not to condemn the error. It is not to oppose the other. It is to recognize that there is no two, and that everything that seems contrary to God is simply the absence of consciousness. You do not need to attack the darkness. You only need to turn on the light. Evil, when examined with spiritual eyes, is not a force in itself. It is an unexamined affirmation, a lie upheld for generations, a mind programming without guidance, a fog. And you do not cut through fog with swords. You dissipate it with clarity. And that clarity comes when you say, "I reject the belief in two. I affirm that there is only one power, one life, one truth, one I am, and that one is in me as me, through me." In that instant, the fracture begins to heal because your consciousness is the bridge. And when the One reigns within you, the outer world begins to reflect that peace. The divided mind creates divided worlds. The unified mind creates order, beauty, abundance, and joy. The fundamental error is not sin, but the belief that sin can separate you from God. It is not the fall, but the conviction that you cannot return. It is not fear, but the inner affirmation that fear has real power. And when you understand that every error arises from the idea of duality, then the path becomes simple. Return to the One, again and again, thought by thought, moment by moment. This does not mean denying the human experience. It is not about closing your eyes to pain, but about denying its spiritual authority, about saying, "What I see may be asleep, but I choose to remember that only God is power, and outside of him there is nothing." This is not arrogance, this is freedom. And every time judgment arises, say silently, "There is no other." Every time fear appears, affirm, "There is only one, and that one holds me." Every time evil seems to dominate, declare, "The error does not have its origin in God. Therefore it has no permanence, because what does not arise from the One cannot sustain itself." And thus, without war, without violence, without the need to change the entire world, you heal it from within because you have stopped believing in two. And evil only lives where duality sustains it. When the two disappears, the conflict disappears. And in that clean space, God recognizes himself in you. And you rest, and you create, and you love, because there is no other, there is only one, and that one, blessed be, is you. When you remember. Chapter 8, Practicing the Law of One, Exercises in Presence and Decrees of I Am. Truth is not enough to know, you must live it. And the Law of One, which we have firmly declared throughout these pages, is not revealed only in moments of deep prayer or spiritual inspiration. It is revealed, above all, in the everyday, in the silence of the soul when no one is looking, in the way you think, speak, decide, walk, respond, and serve, because there is no outside the One, and therefore every moment is sacred ground. Practicing the Law of One is not a religious act, but an inner disposition. It is remembering, moment by moment, that you are not separate, that what you do, to whom you do it, and from where you do it, is always God acting in God. And from that understanding, true practice is born. I will now share with you 4 essential paths to embody this unity: living prayer, conscious affirmation, creative silence, and impersonal service. 4 pillars, 4 columns of light, 4 ways to remember the One where others only see multiplicity. Living prayer. Speak with the One as one. Prayer is not asking, it is not stealing, it is not convincing God to remember you. True prayer is remembering who you are in God and who God is in you. It is a state of presence, an elevation of consciousness. It is not measured by words, but by the degree of unity it awakens. A powerful prayer does not say, "Lord, give me peace," but, "Thank you, for the peace of God already dwells in me as my natural state." It does not say, "Please help me," but, "You are in me, and because you are in me, nothing can be lacking." This is the prayer of the One. It is not spoken to attract, but to recognize. And that recognition brings harmony, provision, clarity, and guidance. Pray every day not as one who asks, but as one who awakens. Make your day a continuous dialogue with the presence, now walking, working, breathing. Now saying within, "I am here, I am in this, God is now." And you will see how the day orders itself, because where there is awareness of the One, there is no confusion. Conscious affirmation decrees of I am. The power of I am is not activated through meaningless repetition. It is activated with understanding, with presence, with faith. Every time you say, "I am," you are calling something into reality, and that something will manifest because the universe responds to the name. But the key lies in what you affirm with that name. Avoid saying, "I am weak, I am poor, I am foolish," because those affirmations are creating distorted mental forms, and what you form in your mind will be projected into your life. Instead, begin to affirm from the truth. I am the divine intelligence at work now. I am the love that heals. I am the order manifesting in my world. I am one with the mind of Christ. Do this in the morning before speaking to the world. Do it in moments of trial when everything seems to shake. Do it in gratitude when you need nothing but to remember, because every affirmation from I am is an act of creation. Creative silence, enter the center. The modern mind is saturated, filled with voices, information, and urgency, but God does not shout, God whispers, and to hear Him, you must silence everything else. Practicing the law of one requires time in silence, not to meditate with technique, but to be with yourself, to be with the One, to be without the need to define. In that silence, the mind is ordered, the emotion calms, the body aligns, and the soul expands. 5 minutes a day is enough to begin. 5 minutes where you do nothing but breathe and remember. Here, there is only God. Over time, that silence becomes a part of you, and although the world speaks, you will hear it from within, from a place where there is no rush, no lack, no separation, only presence. Impersonal service. Be the one in action. The last pillar of practice is the most beautiful. To serve, but not to serve from sacrifice or duty, but from the joy of expressing God through you. When you help someone, when you do your work with excellence, when you smile without reason, when you bless what you touch, you are practicing the law of one, because there is no other. What you give to yourself. What you offer, you return to yourself. What you do in secret manifests in the visible. Spiritual service is presence in action. It is God touching the world through your hands. It does not matter if you do it in a big way or a small way. What matters is from where you do it. If you do it from I am, every act becomes sacred. Every step becomes a path. Every word becomes a prayer. And then practice becomes life, and life becomes an expression of the One, and you become the living remembrance of God. You do not need titles, you do not need to belong to groups, you only need to live as one who has already remembered. Make your day a prayer, make your words decrees of your mind, an altar, make your hands service, and every night before you sleep say quietly, "Today I have lived from the One, and tomorrow even more," because that is the only true purpose, to remember, live, and manifest that there was never two, only the One, only God, only I am. Chapter 9 of the One in Practical Life. Abundance, health, and peace. A truth that cannot be lived is not a complete truth. A revelation that does not manifest in daily life is merely spiritual consolation, not a transformative force. And the law of the One has not been given to decorate the mind, but to free life. God is one, and if God is one and you are an expression of that one, then everything that belongs to the One also belongs to you by divine right, not because you deserve it more than others, but because the inheritance of the Son of God is recognized. This recognition is the key to manifesting true fullness, not abstractly, but here and now, in the realm of your body, your economy, your environment, your peace. Because spiritual life is not separate from practical life. On the contrary, spiritual life is the root from which everything else blossoms. Abundance. The One does not lack. Any form of scarcity is a denial of the law of the One. It declares, even if unconsciously, God is over there and I am here without resources. But that cannot be, because the One does not divide its presence. And if you are in it and it is in you, the source of all provision is also within you. Abundance is not the accumulation of goods. It is the constant and sufficient manifestation of the good. It is knowing that everything you need is available, not because someone gives it to you, but because life flows where it is recognized. The problem is not lack, it is the consciousness of lack, and that consciousness heals when you affirm, I am the abundance of God expressing here and now. You do not need to know how it will come. You only need to remember that God already is, and where God is and God is in you, nothing is missing. When you stop thinking in terms of loss, struggle, and scarcity, and begin to see the presence operating in everything, money, resources, and opportunities will start to flow in ways your reason cannot anticipate, because abundance seals the One as the shadow seals the light. Health. The One does not fragment. Your body is the temple, not of a distant divinity, but of the One living in form. And the One is not sick. The One does not deteriorate, divide, or break. Health is not merely the absence of symptoms, it is the visible expression of divine order, and that order begins in your consciousness. When you think that illness has power, you are separating it from the One, and by doing so, you make it more real in your experience. But if you say, I am the health of God in movement, in rest, in wholeness, and you hold it not as an illusion, but as the eternal truth that reveals itself, your body will begin to respond, because the body is not the cause, it is the result. And when thought unites with the divine mind, form follows. Jesus did not heal with formulas, he healed with vision. He saw the One where others saw the fracture, and by seeing the truth, the lie of illness disappeared. Do the same. Do not fight the symptom. Affirm health as an expression of the One, and your body, which is nothing more than the vessel of the Word, will align with the harmony that has always been. Peace. The One does not compete. Peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of the One within you. It is knowing, without the need for explanations, that everything is well at its root, even though there may be movement on the surface. The divided mind can never have peace. It always compares, fears, waits, regrets. But when you think from unity, you understand that there is no one against you. There is no time lost, no battle to win. There is only God. God in this, God in now, God in you, and that consciousness becomes peace, not as an emotion, but as an inner atmosphere. The peace of the One is not altered by the news. It is not exhausted by work. It does not disappear in the storm because it does not depend on the world. It depends on remembrance. Every time the noise from the outside tries to disorder you, return to the center and say, I am the peace of God. Nothing external can alter my inner state, because only the One is real. Living the fullness as a state, there are no areas of your life that are outside of God. There are no matters too small, no concerns too human. Everything can be redeemed if you look at it with the eyes of the One. You do not need to divide your day into spiritual and mundane. Every gesture can be practice, every thought can be prayer, every step can be a sacred path. Because if the One is everything, then everything can reveal God. And when you live this way, when you make the One your starting point, then abundance, health, and peace are not goals, but reflections. Reflections of a consciousness that no longer fears, no longer divides, no longer begs. A consciousness that says with full authority, all that the One is expresses in me as me and through me, and therefore nothing is missing, nothing is broken, nothing threatens, everything is fulfilled. And so the truth becomes life, and life becomes a silent testimony that the kingdom is already here because you have recognized it. Chapter 10. The Final Awakening, when only one remains. The spiritual path is not a race to heaven, nor a competition for merit, nor a struggle to win divine favor. The spiritual path is truly a return home, a silent, deep, irrevocable return to the recognition that you were never outside, never rejected, never lost. You simply forgot. And when the soul remembers, when the fog of judgment, fear, and the illusion of separation dissipates, then it awakens, not to a new life, but to the real life that has always been. That awakening is the final point of all true searching, and it does not come with fireworks or supernatural visions. It almost always arrives with a sigh, with a rest, with a serene certainty that says, "Everything is well because there is only God, and God is in me as me, and outside of that, there is nothing." This is the final awakening, not because it is last in time, but because there is no more searching after it. When the soul consciously lives in unity, life is no longer about correcting, conquering, or proving. It is about expressing, radiating, resting. Yes, resting. Because the I am, when lived from the center, does not strive, does not justify, does not impose. It simply is, like the sun that does not argue but only shines, like the tree that does not compete but only grows, like the river that does not push but only flows. So too, when you have awakened to the truth, you live from the one, as the one, for the one. The world may continue in its agitation. The minds of others may continue believing in two, but you have remembered, and that remembrance sets you free. You no longer react, you respond. You no longer fear, you observe. You no longer fight, you declare. You no longer run, you walk in the presence. And you do this without needing recognition, because the unified soul does not need witnesses. God already sees it, and that is enough. The I am is victory and rest. Many teachings promise power, the power to manifest, to attract, to overcome obstacles. And while these abilities exist, there is a higher, quieter, more absolute power. The power to rest in the I am. That power is not dominion over the world, it is freedom from the world. It is to look at chaos and know, none of this touches me because the one does not fragment, and I am in the one. It is to see injustice and declare, the truth is restored without my anger, for the law of the one does not fail. It is to see pain and say, this is not the end. I am eternal life manifesting even here. The I am does not hurry, does not wait for results to believe. It believes, and because it believes, it sees. And in that vision, it rests. For no longer do you need to have to feel complete. No longer do you need to control to feel secure. No longer do you need to defend to feel valid. And that being is enough, because that being is God itself, expressing as you. The world continues, but you are no longer in it in the same way. You continue walking among men, but you no longer react as before. You continue working, eating, serving, but your root is in another land, an invisible, unshakable land where only the one is. And when only the one remains, there is no space for doubt, no space for guilt, no space for urgency. Only peace remains, not a decorative peace, but the peace that surpasses all understanding. That peace that can only dwell in the soul that has stopped searching and has begun to remember. And so the journey ends, not with shouts, not with conquests, but with a silent affirmation. I am. And in that I am, all is fulfilled, because the one is, and I am in it. You need no more, because when only the one remains, there is no loss, no opposites, no emptiness. There is fullness, certainty, God, and you being God without needing to call it that. Amen.